Straight Shift with the Car Chick, the podcast that's all about cars, buying, selling, fixing, and driving, and sometimes renting fast if you're the car chick. Now, here she is.
Welcome, everyone, to the Straight Shift. People frequently ask me, when is the best time to buy a car? Should I wait till the end of the summer? Should I wait till the end of the year? It's like they're looking for this magical time of the year where they are guaranteed to get a crazy good deal on a car. So today I wanted to go through and see if we can separate the myth from the fact of when are the best times to buy a car. Because the truth is, there are a number of great times throughout the year to buy a new or used car and get a great deal. And there's also a whole lot of really, really bad times. So let's see if we can separate the myth from the truth and find out when is the best time to buy a car. Some people think that rainy days are a great day to get a good deal on a car. Like rain will deter car shoppers from trudging through lots and wanting to do test drives, and that's going to make the dealers desperate to make a sale. You know, in the past, that may have been true. And in certain areas of the country that don't get a lot of rain, like my friends out in Phoenix, so that may be true in some areas of the country. In general, though, the weather doesn't necessarily dictate car shopping behavior anymore. And a lot of your highline dealers like Mercedes and BMW and Porsche, they have really good days for selling cars from their perspective because their clients tend to prefer to spend sunny, nice days out on the golf course or, out doing things with their family and not sitting in a car dealership. So they actually tend to have more customers and more demand for their cars on rainy days. So that's not necessarily a time to get a good deal on those type of cars. So, these days, I don't recommend basing a major financial decision like buying a car on the weather report. So let's just throw the whole rainy day myth completely out the window. So let's talk about weekdays versus weekends. Obviously, weekdays tend to be better for car shopping since most people tend to peruse their lots on the weekends because of their work schedule. They just can't take time off during the week to go run around to different car dealerships. And so weekends tend to be a lot higher volume for the dealers. That's why I don't schedule test drives or deliveries for my clients on the weekends unless we just absolutely have no other choice because it's too crazy. And the salespeople want to stay focused on the walk-ups. That's what we call ups in the business. People that just kind of walk onto the lot, without a plan, without having an appointment, and they're at the mercy of whichever salesman happens to be kind of next in line, sort of like when you stand in line at the taxi stand at the airport. You just get the next person in line to drive the taxi. So dealers often refer to the weekends as the tuna run because there are so many fish on their lot, to sell cars to that they might not be as motivated to discount the cars because they have such an influx of customers that, if you don't want to buy, fine, I'll go on to the next one. And also as a result of it being so crazy, it's definitely going to take you a lot longer at the dealership. So kind of plan to spend your whole weekend there. And you might not get as much personal attention. So I always say, if you're going to go car shopping, try to take some time off during the week, even if it's an evening after work, or if you can kind of get away with, not taking a morning off and going in the morning and then going into work after lunch, you're going to get some better attention. And you may be able to negotiate a better deal for yourself when there's not a million other customers also trying to buy cars. The end of the month. Hardcore negotiators are going to tell you always wait until the last day of the month to buy a car because dealers are trying to make their quotas and they're desperate for deals. And there is definitely a lot of truth to that myth. And it's not just about the profits. Here's how kind of things work in the background of a dealership. number one, obviously they're trying to make financial goals. And so they want to, try and maximize their profits, especially at the end of their month. If their, finance people have looked at the numbers and say, we're kind of short, guys. But a lot of it is based on the number of cars that they sell. The number of cars that a dealer sells every month, and this is particularly pertaining to new cars, but there's some truth to it with the used car realm as well. But the number of new cars they sell every month determines some very important things for that new car franchise. It can determine how many allocations, which means the number of cars they get from the manufacturer and how much say they have in what trim level of cars, what options, even their first choice of colors that they get from the manufacturer for the next month. So, if they only sell 50 cars this month, the manufacturer's gonna be like, we're not gonna give you as many next month because you haven't proven to us that you can sell them, and we don't really care what colors you want. We're gonna give you what we have. So the dealers, the managers like to have the best number of allocations that they possibly can, because then they get to choose the best cars for their lot for the next month, which will hopefully ensure that they have a good month next month too. It also determines the number of marketing dollars that they can get from the manufacturer. There's a complicated financial relationship between your franchise dealers, meaning like your Honda store, your Toyota store, your BMW store, and the actual manufacturer. That is a franchise or franchisee relationship. And they do get a certain number of dollars for things like advertising. And that can be really important, and it can be determined on them selling a certain number of cars every month. So, for an individual salesperson who, if you're just walking into a dealership negotiating on your own, that's the person that you are dealing with. That person is looking at their personal sales for that month and saying, am I meeting my quotas? Am I meeting my sales goals? Am I making the money I need to make that month? Versus the manager who's looking at, how many cars has my dealership as a whole moved this month? And I need to look at that big picture for allocations and marketing dollars and other things from the manufacturer. That's why if a dealership is having kind of a bad month, we'll just call it a bad month. And several dealerships did have that in June. June can be a low month because people are busy dealing with kids getting out of school and graduations and summer vacations and stuff, and they're not necessarily buying as many cars. So I did have some of my dealers towards the end of June saying, hey, I need as many deals as I can get this month. And I got some stupid good deals. I mean, they lost some serious money on these cars, but on the grand scale of things in the big picture, they needed the numbers in order to meet their goals with the manufacturer. And so, yay, their loss, my clients win, but it wasn't really a loss for the dealership because, they were looking at the big picture. So those things are things to consider, but it depends on the type of car that you're looking for. And it can even depend on that dealership. Some dealerships have great months, and in that same month, other dealerships have really bad months. So that's why it's important to shop around, and maybe go to a dealership that is having a bad month because they may be more desperate to move the cars, to move the metal, as we say. So that just takes a lot of shopping around, which you should be doing anyway. But keep in mind, if you do wait till the end of the month, don't wait till the very last day, because then, you are at the mercy of getting the whole deal done and signed, because they have to have the signatures on the paperwork by that date. You may be at the mercy of having to take a car that's on their lot that's not your first choice. It might not be your first color choice. It might not have all the options that you want, but they don't have time to do a dealer trade, or they're not as motivated to, because they just want to get this sale done and get this car moved off their lot. So you can be putting yourself at a disadvantage as well. So don't wait till the last day, but if you want to wait until the last week and start negotiating, you may get yourself a better deal. You may not, if that dealer's not having any trouble moving that particular car or cars in general. So again, like pretty much everything else I tell you guys, it depends on your unique situation and the situation of your particular market. Now, a lot of people like to wait till the end of the model year. They think that, August is the end of the model year. The new 2019s are coming out on September 1st, and therefore dealers are desperate to get rid of the 2018s. Here are some problems with that myth. While it can be true, and in some cases it definitely is, but a lot of times it's not. Number one, the model year is not automatically September 1st for all manufacturers or even any manufacturer. That used to be more true. But as production has gotten more complicated, there are so many more models on the market, and the production for any given manufacturer can be spread across the globe. Their model year is not necessarily a set September 1st or even September. Some manufacturers release new models in November, or they try to get it out by the end of the year. Some of them wait until January or February to release new models. Again, it really depends. Now, the majority of your mainstream cars, your Fords, your Chevys, your Dodges, even your Hondas and Toyotas, they tend to switch over their model year at the end of the summer, early fall. Now, it depends on how they have managed their production schedules and their inventory versus their sales throughout the year. And some manufacturers are better at doing this than others. So, for example, if you're looking for, an American car that hasn't been selling well, and I'm just using an American car as an example because you tend to have better rebates on the American cars for this reason, you might be able to get a great deal, especially if you're not as picky about the colors and the options and you're willing to take what's on the lots. You might be able to get a great deal towards the end of the model year. And there are big summer sales that can go on because, yes, the dealers are managing their inventory with anticipation of the model years switching over. Now, that means you are at the mercy of what they are trying to get rid of. So if you're looking for a car that is a little bit more rare, for example, right now, I've got a client that I'm shopping for one of the new Chevy Traverse. They were redesigned for 2018, so it's a new redesigned model anyway. And she wants the top of the line model with this special red line package, which blacks out the wheels and the emblems. And let me just tell you, it looks totally badass. I'm very supportive of this decision for her. But there's very, very few of them out there. So the incentives on that particular car, while there are some in place, number one, we've got to find it. There aren't any in her geography, so we're going to have to look outside the geography for it and find a dealer that has one or will trade for one, and that affects our negotiating power. And we may not get her first color choice. She understands this. This is the car she wants, and that's perfectly fine. She has realistic expectations for it. Now, if she were looking for a lower trim level that, had cloth seats and not all the fancy bells and whistles and not all the cool badass blacked out stuff, we would have a lot of options, and there are more incentives on those lower trim levels. So even within a specific model of car like this Chevy Traverse, the incentives, the rebates, the lease deals, the financing options, those can actually vary between the different trim levels. This super fancy top level trim that she wants, there are not as many incentives on as a more base level, cloth seats, no fancy panoramic sunroof and other crap car. So be very aware of the type of car that you are shopping for. And if there's a ton of them out there and a ton of them left over and the dealers are desperate to get rid of them, by all means, go out and get yourself a killer deal on it. But be aware you may not find all the options and colors that you're looking for because the car you're looking for has been popular all year and they're already completely sold out of them. A few years ago, I had a client who did that, and she had done some research ahead of time and had gone on to some of those, pricing websites and had even gotten a quote from a dealer, at this, ridiculously low price for the car that she had spec'd out. But here was the catch. Nobody actually had that car in their inventory anywhere on the entire East coast. It didn't exist. So the quote she got through email from that dealer was complete BS. And, when I told her that we can't get this car, here's one we can get that's close, but no banana, or we can wait for, a couple months for the next model year to come out. We can place an order for one for you now and you'll get it in 2 or 3 months and I can get you a fair price on that. She was really pissed that she didn't get her killer deal. She had specifically waited till the end of August so she could get the best possible deal, but failed to consider that the car she wanted might not actually be there. That's just how inventory works. So before you decide to wait until the end of August to start car shopping, you might want to start doing some research now to see truly what the market is for the car you want. Because you don't want to have to settle for a car. That's just, you're spending so much money on a new car. Don't ever settle if you can avoid it. You shouldn't have to pay a bunch of money for something that you don't completely and totally love. I'm going to take a super quick break, and when we come back, we're going to talk about end-of-year car shopping and when is the best time to buy a pickup truck versus a convertible, and when is the absolute worst possible time to buy a car. I will be right back in just a few seconds. Do you hate car shopping? Do you worry about being taken advantage of or about finding the right car at a fair price? Buying a car can be a frustrating and time-consuming experience. But what if you could get a great deal without having to do a ton of research, without having to haggle, and without the fear of buying a lemon? You can. As your personal car shopper, the Car Chick will help you pick the perfect car based on your unique lifestyle, budget, and personality. She'll handle all of the legwork and negotiating for you. All you have to do is sign the papers and take the keys. It's that easy. To learn how the Car Chick can save you time, money, and hassle on your next car purchase, give us a call at 888-575-2138. That's 888-575-2138. Or visit us on the web at thecarchick.com.
Ah, the Car Chick is back for more Straight Shift.
Welcome back to the Straight Shift. We've been talking today about the best times to buy a car and dispelling some of the myths surrounding that. And we've talked about the pros and cons of waiting till the end of the month or the end of the summer or the model year for cars. And we've completely dispelled the myth about rainy days being a great time to buy a car. Honestly, I don't know who came up with that one in the first place. Let's talk about waiting till the end of the calendar year, that whole holiday shopping frenzy. And this is similar to waiting till the end of the model year. And sometimes the end of the calendar year and the end of the model year happen to coincide, or the manufacturer will decide to release a brand new vehicle or a newly redesigned vehicle towards the end of the year to kind of get people excited about it and, start thinking, ooh, that's what I want for Christmas or for Hanukkah or for Yule or whatever. And in that case, sometimes those cars, you're not going to have any crazy good deals on those because people have been waiting for them to come out, and you're going to be at the mercy of, the new little bits of inventory that have been distributed to the dealers. They might only be getting 2 or 3 or 5 of them on their lot, and everybody's going to be clamoring for them. Or you might not be able to get one at all, or they might be delayed. Sometimes they think, production didn't go as planned, and now it's going to be January, or now it's going to be February. Believe me, in the car world, things just don't always go as planned. Now, some cars you can get a great deal on towards the end of the calendar year. There are financial reasons for dealers to want to reduce their inventory. It's usually accounting reasons, and I'm not going to get into that because I'm not an accountant and I don't play one on TV or the radio. But a lot of the hype around the holiday sales is just that. It's hype because the car dealers want to cash in on the holiday shopping frenzy. I mean, they have their own Black Friday sales. And that's not to say that you can't get a good deal. There are good deals to be had at the end of the year. But you have to really, again, do your homework and really investigate it to see, is this really an exceptionally good deal? Or is this a whole lot of red tag holiday shopping marketing hype where they put a big bow on top of the car and this big red tag with this sale price, and you think you're getting a ridiculously good deal on the car, and guess what? You're really not. It's just a lot of hype. Or maybe it's a good, AP, a 0% APR rate, which right now is actually a good thing because interest rates have gone through the roof this year. And so if you can capitalize on a 0% APR from a manufacturer, it's a great idea. But you have to do your research and don't just assume that the end of the year is going to be a great time to buy any car or specifically the car that you are looking for. Don't get just sucked in to all the holiday shopping hype. Do your homework and approach it from a very logical financial aspect to make sure that you are getting a good deal and not just getting kind of swept up in the emotion of the season. Another thing that you have to think about at the end of the year is because it is, traditionally a good time to buy a car, or let's just say it's a popular time to buy a car because so many people do buy into the myth. It's crazy at the dealerships. December at a car dealership is like April is for your accountant. It's freaking nuts. So here's what happens with that. The dealers are humans and they're running around like chickens with their heads cut off, and they may make mistakes. It's happened to me more than once in my dealings, and that's why I don't even do any car shopping after December 15th. I tell my clients, if you want to buy a car by the end of the year, you better call me before Thanksgiving because I don't even accept new clients after the first week in December because it's just too crazy, and I am not going to risk there being mistakes made and not being able to deliver the exceptionally high level of service that I deliver to my clients and that I expect from my dealers. And quite frankly, it's just not worth the stress at the end of the year. So I can get just as good of a deal in November, typically, or the first week in December as I can wait until the end of the year. So for me, it doesn't matter. It's more about making sure that it's getting the great deal plus the great customer experience. If you are car shopping on your own at the end of the year, just be prepared for extra craziness. And if you think you spend 4 hours at the dealership, in April buying a car, you're going to spend 6 to 8 at the dealership in December because it's just so crazy. And think, is it really worth the added holiday stress? Or maybe should you plan and start looking, hey, they start actually releasing some pretty darn good deals as early as October. So start your process early and don't just, spend the entire week between Christmas and New Year's sitting in a car dealership. I don't think that's how anybody wants to spend the holidays. And the dealers will probably appreciate you, spreading it out for them as well because they are so crazy at the end of the year, bless their hearts. Now, there are certain types of vehicles that do have better times throughout the year to buy. Pickup trucks, if you're looking for a new pickup truck, for some reason, summer, particularly July, is a great time of the year. I think that a lot of the manufacturers, and when I talk about buying pickup trucks are one of the few things where I tend to buy much more American than Asian. Typically when clients call me and say I need a new pickup truck, I'm like, great, you want the Ford or the Chevy? Sometimes they'll want the Ram, but unless they really love the Tacoma, or the Nissan Titan, very often, especially down here in the South, the whole Ford Chevy thing. So, but July can be a ridiculously good time to buy those American trucks because the inventory management of trucks can be a little more challenging, I guess, for the manufacturers. But for some reason, they just have fire sales on trucks in July and sometimes into August. So I tend to have gotten my very best new truck deals in the summer months. Now, convertibles. This one should be fairly obvious. Convertibles are more popular in the spring and summer than they are, say, in December or January, at least in places that have something that resembles winter. In Florida, forget it. This goes out the window. Convertibles are good all year round. And even in the Carolinas, we don't see as drastic of deals down here because, even when it is quote cold, and I'm saying quote cold because to us it's cold, it's, oh my God, it's, 34 degrees, it's almost freezing and we're just dying down here. And all of, my people listening up north, Amy up in Vermont and all my good friends that live in Wisconsin. I know you're laughing. It's okay. I laugh too. I still remember what it's like to live up north, and it doesn't get above -60 for 6 weeks. So up there, buying a convertible in January, you're probably going to get a better deal, especially on a used one. But dealers are also not going to be stocking their inventory with a whole lot of them either. So, you just kind of got to look at, again, the supply and demand for particular vehicles at particular times of year. But if you have a choice between buying a convertible, in May versus buying it in November, I would suggest waiting till November because you're probably going to get a better deal. One thing to note about the summer months and certain types of cars. European cars, a lot of times like your Highline cars, like I'm shopping for an Audi A5 Sportback right now for a client of mine. It's a really cool car. And we're kind of looking at the inventory that's out there because he does want a kind of a top of the line model with a lot of the really cool bells and whistles like their virtual cockpit and all the driver aids. Audi's technology is just absolutely amazing. And there's a limited amount of inventory out there. So we're kind of going, well, do we maybe compromise on some of the things that we're looking for and get something now? Or do we extend the lease on his current car a few more months and place an order for a 2019, knowing that, we're not 100% sure what the pricing will be because it will depend on incentives at the time of delivery. But the biggest thing that we're having to consider is if we order one now, it's going to be October at best case before we get one. And here's why. Europe shuts down in August. Europe has this wonderful concept that everybody should have an entire month off during the year. And August is that month. So literally all of Europe shuts down for the month of August, and everybody goes on vacation. And that includes the manufacturing plants of most of your European car manufacturers. So production literally comes to a screeching halt for the month of August, and then everybody goes back to work in September and everything resumes. It's really very cool from, a work-life balance kind of situation. Everybody gets vacation. But, if you're trying to buy a car and trying to get one built for you, you kind of have to write off the month of August. Other manufacturers like Subaru, for example, Subaru does a really good job of managing their inventory levels to keep supply and demand very, very close. And that helps keep the demand for their cars up. They're never having to have fire sales on any of their cars. And, it creates a more consistent cash flow for the dealers and for the manufacturer. Where it gets challenging is really right now in kind of July, August, they're switching over production. And this is what happens. The dealers, when they switch over production from one model a year to another, it's not something that happens overnight. It takes time, and it takes a lot more time if they are switching over to a fully redesigned model. Because if they're changing everything, they have to change their whole manufacturing process. They have to retrain everybody. They change the production line. There's a process there that can take them a few months to get in the swing of things. So they'll scale down the production of the outgoing model year so that they can start rolling the conversion over in their factories to the new model year and rolling their training, and then start gearing up production on the new models. When I say that rolling over, it sounds like it can happen really smoothly and seamlessly. It does not, ever. And so sometimes with Subaru particularly, you'll get, if you're looking for a new Subaru in August, you may be waiting because the dealers have sold out of the old models and are still waiting for delivery on the new models. And they're going nuts because they don't have any cars to sell. But you may be at the mercy of waiting, and now there's a wait list building up. They're pre-selling them, and so you're probably going to have to pay a little bit more. You're not going to get a crazy good deal because demand exceeds supply. This goes back to Economics 101, supply and demand. So the price that you pay at any given point in time for any type of vehicle will entirely depend on the supply and demand in the market conditions that you are in. So that's why you have to do your homework. So the worst time to buy a car, absolute worst time ever, is when you personally are desperate. If you've gotten into an accident, your car has been totaled, you're desperate for a car. If you have, kind of waited too long and your car has broken down and it's in a complete state of disrepair, and as we say, the new car light is on, you can be desperate. And so here's what I suggest if you find yourself in one of these desperate situations. Rent a car for a month. Call Enterprise. It may cost you, more to rent for a month than what, a new car payment is, but it actually might not be that much different than a new car payment. And, you don't have to rent a big car. If you can and you don't have a lot of kids to cram into it, you can, just rent a little Econo box for a month. But give yourself the time to do the car shopping so that you're not making a frantic, impulsive, desperate decision, because that's when people get themselves in trouble. They buy the wrong car. 2 months later, they hate the car. They don't, it's not serving their needs, or they get into a bad financial situation. It was a bad deal overall. And now, it's going to take them a couple of years to unwind themselves from that bad situation. So don't make your desperate situation worse by adding on a bad financial decision and buying the wrong car. Rent a car. If you're in a lease and you think, oh crap, my lease ends, I've got to turn the car in next week, call your leasing company. Most of leasing companies will extend your lease a couple months. They're like, yeah, sure, I can keep making payments. They'll just do some recalculations and you'll be fine. I've not found a leasing company that won't do that won't work with you on that. So make sure that you're always doing your homework. You understand the market conditions around the car that you want. You understand the supply and demand for it. And that way you can plan your purchase, and you're not going to be settling for a car that isn't your first choice of color, that doesn't have the options that you really need. Or even worse, you end up buying a totally different make and model that you don't really like or isn't as good a quality car, simply because the one that you really want isn't available, or it doesn't have the crazy good deal that you thought you might be able to get. I know this is a lot of information to throw at you, and you're probably going, geez, Car Chick, I ask a question and your answer is always, it depends. I know that's frustrating, but it's the reality. You have to look at the big picture. And a lot of the old adages about the best time to buy a car, or, the best way to do this or the best way to do that, they're very generic. A lot of them are many, many years out of date, and they're just myths. And I deal in the reality of each individual's personal situation to make sure that we're making the right decisions for you. If you find yourself in this situation and you want to talk to me about buying a car, you want to know, should I wait till the end of the year or should I buy now? Just go ahead and get on my website, thecarchick.com, shoot me an email, give me a call. I'm happy to have a free car chat with you to talk about the situation and to make sure that you are positioning yourself in the best possible way to make the best financial decision and get a car that you truly love. Thanks so much, folks. Try and stay cool out there this summer. It's crazy hot here. And as always, drive safely. I'm out of here.
The Straight Shift Podcast is copyright Leanne Shattuck, The Car Chick, 2017. All views expressed by guest and or co-hosts are those of the guest and or co-hosts, and not necessarily those of Leanne Shattuck or The Car Chick.